How are you, Christine Williams?
Good morning, Anthony. Very well, thank you. Thank you for asking me on. This is really quite a privilege.
It's an honour to have you on and a privilege to have you on, and I'm really looking forward to getting your insights on joy, happiness, and fulfillment. But before we get into that, I'd love you to bring the listeners up to date with who you are, what you do, a little bit about your backstory, just so that they know a bit more about your background.
Oh, of course. So Christine Williams, and my business is Smarter Property Investing. I am a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. I have been divorced. I am remarried. I left school before I turned 16, so I suppose that's where I really need to start my story. I'm a numbers girl, and in school I loved maths. Numbers just come to me. I don't know why, but they do just come to me. And my dream was to always be a maths teacher or a flight attendant. And I must admit, my parents did take me to some sessions, some afternoon, and because I wore glasses, as you can see, I wear glasses, you know, 50 odd years ago, it wasn't acceptable to be a flight attendant with glasses. So my ambition was to be a maths teacher. Shortly after that, through family circumstances, I had to leave school. I had to leave school to get a job straight away and help my family financially. My brother, who wasn't 16, left probably 9 months after me, and he started working on trucks with my father. So I do have another brother. He was fortunate enough to stay at school and go through an apprentice and is very successful in what he does today. But leaving school was a happy sort of thing. I was going to be a big girl. I was going to be working in an office, and I was going to be able to wear dresses. I didn't have to wear a school uniform. And so there was excitement there. But as I look back through everything, it really was a big disappointment. It was something that I wanted to do to help my family, and I enjoyed my job. I was working in the office, I was in accounts, so I got to go into a computer section, I was payroll. And so, really, the world of numbers was in my space, so I loved it. Um, I went along and I married at 18 and a half, so I married quite young. And then we had our first child a couple of years later. I was still working bit by bit. I know this sounds really funny, but very quickly I became a supervisor and I was managing people, which was really weird when you think, 21, 22-year-old female who left school before she was 16. But it was always around accounting, and probably 12 or 18 months after my first daughter was born, I actually went back to school, went back to night school to do my accounting degree, which naturally happened. So through working, married, being happy, having a daughter, entertaining people, we had a new home, we're in a new area, northern suburbs of Melbourne. Everything was going along wonderfully. It really and truly was. And my parents were really impressed, my brothers were impressed, people around us were really impressed, and we were the perfect couple. A few years later, we had another daughter, and by this time, together with my career and together with my qualifications, I kept on working towards the next level of qualification, or the corporations that I was working for, the next level of being included, and the qualifications, and being in accounting and having more staff under me and so forth. And of course my income kept on increasing. But I I was in the world of listening to people. Because I was in the world of accounting, I was seeing many things from a business perspective. And I kept on sort of thinking, how can we get another property? How can we make more money? It has to be because I'm earning more money. It has to be I have to get more qualifications. My then husband was a fitter and turner. And so from a careers perspective, we actually had qualifications behind us. We were never entitled to any government grants or anything. We seemed to miss out on all of that. But together with me loving numbers and loving my daughters and wanting more, my then husband couldn't understand why I wanted more. What were we looking for? And all I could think about was, in my childhood, my story there is that most of the accommodation that my parents had were caravans. We lived in caravan parks. Um, so, from a careers perspective, we actually had qualifications behind us. We were never entitled to any government grants or anything. We seemed to miss out on all of that. But together with me loving numbers and loving my daughters and wanting more, my then husband couldn't understand why I wanted more. What were we looking for? And all I could think about was, in my childhood, most of the I didn't know we were really poor. I had a very happy childhood, but I didn't know we were really poor until I obviously grew older, was working in corporations, and seeing how the business world and the world itself actually worked. And I actually had a home before my parents had a home. The day I got married, I left our caravan and we had a home. So, in my family's perspective, I'd married the golden child, and everything was just going to be wonderful. Um, so happiness was alluded to me because I didn't know I wasn't happy. I thought I was happy because I was being told, you're so lucky, you've got a house, you're so lucky, you've got your qualifications, you're so lucky, you're getting a pay rise, you're so lucky, you've got staff working on you. And I was so lucky, and I was so lucky that I was a really good cook, and I was a really good homeowner, and I was so lucky because I was on Parents and Friends, and I was on school committees. And I realised in my 30s I wasn't happy. I realised I was chasing happiness through everything other than my marriage. Now, I did not have a bad marriage. It was not a bad marriage. There was no domestic violence. From everyone's perspective, we were the perfect couple. We had the perfect family. My daughters started private school, so that was huge in my family. But I got to one position with an organisation, and it was really funny how I ended up getting that job. It sort of was like a default. And 3 weeks after I started there, I realised I was only going to be a stopgap. And I realised that when one of the directors had come back from overseas, I had no longer had a job. And of course, I had a problem because we had a mortgage. And in our family, as much as my husband was earning quite a decent wage, I was earning a lot more. And so the thought of me losing a job and things crashing down, and my husband never interested in wanting to invest in property or try to do something other than pay our own house off, okay, it started to come, I started to realise how unhappy I was because of the obligations I had put myself in. Now, I had done a lot of that myself. The expectations of life around me was my expectations, and I had to be better, and I had to do more, and I had to achieve. And that comes from leaving school early, wearing glasses, and being called an ugly duckling. So there was all this, pretense about why I was happy and how I was happy. Eventually, through the position I had, the director come back. He didn't put me off because there was an issue in the business, and I'd actually found it, okay, and I was actually surprisingly given a pay rise, and I actually was given a 3-year contract. And in that time, because of the probably opportunities as a female, I was given in a man's world, because it was in the automotive industry, in a man's world, and the steps I created and the positions I created, I actually started to understand who I was and what I needed. And I started to realise after 18 months, I was working 12 hours a day because I wanted to be there. I didn't want to go home to my husband. I wanted to go home to my children, but I didn't want to go home to my husband. And I could see that mentally, from a mental perspective, I was leaps and bounds ahead of my husband, and he hadn't grown, but I had grown so much. So I decided at 35, and I actually left. So I have written a book, Suddenly Single, but it was my decision. And I thought by taking control of my own life, everything's going to be rosy. And I took control, and I did leave. And look, the first couple of years was just chaos. I wasn't under the thumb from my husband. He was the one that dictated where the money went. I was making it, but he dictated where the money went. I wasn't allowed to buy a new pair of shoes without his permission. I wasn't allowed to go out and buy the kids things, without his permission. So he was so strict with the money. Whereas when I left on a really good income, and I went crazy with money. I just spent and spent and spent. And very quickly, I ended up in debt, okay? But I was renting. We did sell the family home. I did come out with a small settlement. And I was embarrassed about renting. But what renting taught me was I had the freedom I needed, and it was the freedom that was making me happy. So I started to realize what was making me happy, and in that I stopped being embarrassed about renting, because one of the big things I wanted to do was to maintain my daughter's community and the school that they were in. And so it was more important to me to be able to provide that than it was to have my own home. But along the way, that lesson taught me amazing things, and it's probably got me where I am today. And it taught me that I could rent, and if once I stopped my spending splurge and paid off that credit card debt, and private school fees and goodness knows what, I could start saving, and I could actually start buying into property. And so the first thing I did was go and buy a book, and I started reading. And look, I lucked into my first purchase. It doubled in 12 months. I sold it, I made money, because the plan was to make money to eventually buy a home. And then I bought land, and 18 months later it doubled. And so I called my accountant, because I really, at that point, I was very engaged with advisors. And he said, there'll always be land. Christine, sell it. So I did. So I made more money. And then I bought property, which was an investment. And that was making money. So all of a sudden, I started to realise that renting, I was comfortable. I had my home. My daughters were happy. I was happy. I had freedom. And I was renting, and I believe I started the rent vesting strategy. You rent where you want to live, but you afford to buy where you can afford to buy. And I was buying property interstate. So it just happened. It really did just happen. But of course, it came with life experiences. It came with, I didn't want to end up in a caravan. I didn't want to go away on a holiday and live in a tent, because we live in a caravan and a holiday was a tent. I wanted my girls to stay in school. I wanted nice things, and I wanted to be able to make those decisions myself. So eventually I did remarry, and actually my current husband, who I love very dearly, his idea on property was a bit different. He thought businesses was going to make money, but I've since turned him around. And it was him who said, you should start a business, Christine. You have learned so much. You're helping so many people. I was helping family and friends and telling them what I was doing, because of course they could start seeing success. And what they didn't see was, the mistakes I'd made along the way, but they turned into successes. And really that's how Smarter Property Investing was created, by people wanting to know how I did it, when I did it, why I did it, and what the pitfalls were and what they needed to know. And, after a few years, my husband said to me, this is a business, you should start a business. And so I did. So this business is 13 years old, it'll be 14 years old in August 25. And I've technically been in the industry for 20 years. So my story is, I found happiness through freedom. I found happiness through the career that I had created, and I found happiness by understanding when I was at work 12 hours a day, I was allowed to be me. When I left, I got back in the car, 15 minutes before I'd get to the driveway, I'd start to think, oh, I've got to go home now. And I had to be this different person. I had to be this person around the expectation of my first husband. And so it was very scary, but it took a lot of courage for me to decide that this was over and there was a new path. And then of course it did get very scary, but happiness came out of it. So happiness to me was fulfilling myself, and then by fulfilling myself I could be a real person, a real Christine Williams around everybody else.
That's amazing. What an incredible story. In terms of the initial perception of happiness was, if the people around me perceive that I've got a good life, then I must be happy, right? But and then you realize after a while that no, there's something missing. It's just not quite right. Like, yes, I've got all this, and yes, you tell me that I should be happy because I have all this, but there's something not right. And you really then looked within and found what was missing from within, and then sought to fulfill that. And one of the things, as you said, was that freedom and that being you, just allowing the true expression of you, as opposed to allowing the outside to say who you are. This is who Christine Williams are. Is you then said, no, this is who Christine Williams is, and this is what Christine Williams loves to do. She loves her, numbers. She loves, making choices and having the freedom to grow and expand and become a better person, and loves her children and watching them grow and thrive. And so it's really incredible how people's expectations initially set the course for how you thought,
Are supposed to
yeah,
feel.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yes, yeah. But
And
then
because you don't know, you think that's right until you understand that it's not right.
yeah,
Yes. And it
yeah.
is a journey. It is a
Yes.
journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and your journey's been incredible in terms of the path and the opportunities you've created. They haven't come through luck at all. It's all been hard work, and like recognizing your superpowers too. Because I think another defining moment was like there was obviously discrimination way back in the time, and you were highly discriminated against. That sort of stuff wouldn't happen today.
No.
However, it did direct you somewhat towards your strength, right? So it's sort of, well, okay, they're telling me I can't do that, but I'm really good at this. I'm going to do more of this. And this is the whole thing that you've shared throughout your story is the numbers. Like I really just understand numbers, and I can make sense of them, and I can generate more numbers. And so it's been a really that was a defining point in terms of you just honing in on your superpower and then just investing in more and more time, and growing that area that you're really strong at.
Yes. Yeah. As I said, I don't know why I understand numbers so much. I just understand them. Yes. So
Yeah.
superpower. Gee, thank you, Anthony. I've never thought about it that way, but thank you.
Well, because I think like what happens is when we're growing up, people say that we're good at this and we should do this or whatever, or they're directing you in the path that they wanted to go down, but they didn't have the option or the choice, and so therefore they're sort of pushing you or trying to relive their life through you. And I think the great thing about you is that you had the strength and courage from early on to say, no, I know I'm good at this, and then you just really focused on that, because we all have these superpowers, so to speak, but often we turn a blind eye to it because people tell us that we should be doing something else, or you can't, like, my superpower is health, right? So I'm very much invested in health, and I do that. I love doing that, and now I help others with their health, similar to you're great at numbers, you're very good at creating wealth, and now you help others generate wealth through that superpower of yours. So I very much relate to that story of, well, the whole story actually, because my fulfillment came when I started to express who I am, that find that authentic voice within me, and then express that to the world, and not allow the world to power who I am, and the outside
Yes.
world to define who I am.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely, definitely. It's and it's like a light bulb moment. It is. It's quite powerful, actually. It really is. And I, I mean, my daughters and my grandchildren and family, they are a joy. But when I see a client, it's very fearsome when they're about to enter this world and take out another mortgage and all the bits and bobs that goes with that. But when I see their face elated and they come back to me, it's either a light bulb moment that they can do it, and then when they have, they've realised their growth and their capital gain, and they call me and send me things, and they can't thank me enough, and I have changed their lives. I've changed their life path incredibly from a financial perspective, and they are achieving their things. That makes my heart sing. It really does. It really does, and it's that's what I get out of what I do. Yeah, I really
Abs-
do.
Absolutely, because you're helping people find freedom, from a money perspective, like financial freedom, and that was something you didn't have from a childhood, and so you're essentially helping people have that financial control that you mentioned around finances as well, and be able to expand and grow that, and not allow finances to dictate their life or their destiny. And it's very much that thing from very early on in your life in terms of what you didn't have is now you're allowing others to fulfill that void that's within them, that they may feel constricted around finances, or finances dictate their life. What you're, I guess, allowing them to break that glass ceiling and realize that no, they can take control of their financial destiny. It's not reliant on the government. They don't need to be dependent on the government. They can do it themselves, and you empower them to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
In terms of along your journey, was there any misconceptions or myths that you were led to believe around happiness, joy, and fulfillment that you now realize that are complete lies, or led you astray?
I think that comes, I think the realization in that is, as I said, I had a happy childhood. I didn't know we were poor. So, a misconception there is just because you're poor doesn't mean to say you're not going to be happy. Because I was happy, right? I just didn't know how poor we were until I ventured into the big world of being married and careers and children and so forth. And then there was this expectation of what, I don't want to call it keeping up with the Joneses, but there is that fallacy that if you are keeping up with the Joneses, you're going to be happy. And it's not right. It certainly is not right. So that in itself is a myth. And then we come along decades and decades, and technology is just amazing, and technology is supposed to make our life more simple. And I can tell you, I love my dishwasher. I wouldn't live without my dishwasher. So my dishwasher does make me happy. Doesn't make me happy if, I have to continually empty it all the time. But of course, my husband and I, we work that out. We take turns. So, I love technology. I feel that I'm a little bit technology illiterate when it comes to, we're on Zoom at the moment and we've got all these new AI things and ChatGPT. So it can be a bit overwhelming. And technology is supposed to make our life easier, which if our life is easier, we're supposed to have more time to do the things that we want. So the fallacy that I'm bringing up there with technology is, unfortunately, social media is a comparison of people we really don't even know. Now, they may or may not be a friend, they may or may not be a true friend, you may have liked something because you felt like you had to like it because of the environment that you're in, and then all of a sudden you have brought into your world comparison. And, growing up, we might go to the movies and we would love to be that person on the screen, or we would think we're that hero. That would be really wonderful. And, then we'd start watching these, series, and you'd get involved in someone else's life. And it really has snowballed as far as I'm concerned. And I feel it's snowballed in a very negative progress. We are continually comparing ourselves, and we haven't got enough. And when there are people out there, we've got entrepreneurs out there and people that are very philosophical. I can't say that word properly, but they're philanthropic and they give. So we have this illusion whereby this person, through public information, this person may be, have $100 million, and then that person may offer $1 million to Californian flyers, or I know what we offered with Black Saturday here. That person would be put down because he's got 100 million. Why did he only give him $1 million? He should have given all of it. I know when we had the Black Saturday fires here, I know what we donated to the Salvation Army, and it was in 4 figures. But I myself questioned, well, we've got more. Should I be giving more? Because if I'm only giving that much, and by the way, it was 4 figures, but if we're only giving that much and I've got more, why shouldn't I be giving more? So we do have this tall poppy syndrome in Australia. We don't like people achieving, and if they do achieve, we denigrate them in saying, well, you should be giving more. And that there upsets me, because it's making those people with that judgment, they're unhappy. And they're unhappy because they haven't got what this other person's got. And those people may try to win Tassoto every week. It's not fulfilling. Money is not what's going to make them happy. I have learned that along the way. As much as I use property as a vehicle to achieve the things that you want to achieve, just by having lots and lots of money, it doesn't make you happy. And the people that do have lots and lots of money, no matter what they give, it's never enough. So the fallacy of money will make you happy, no, money won't make you happy. It's what you do with that money that will make you happy. And it is making memories that make you happy. And, you know, Steve Jobs, incredible man, good, bad, or otherwise, for whatever opinion is. But as he said when he was, you know, extremely ill and he knew he didn't have much longer to live, he did say, I am going to leave this earth. Yes, I've got money, but I'm no different to anyone that came into this earth. I came into this earth with no clothes. I'm going to be leaving this earth with no clothes. And it doesn't matter how much I've got, I'm about to, you know, lose life. So I really, and I have been through breast cancer, on across the other side, and you do really start to rethink what your value proposition is and what is going to make you happy. Is it that brand new car in the driveway? Is it that brand new, I don't know, iPhone? Is it that brand new dress? Is it the brand new pair of shoes? Or is it what you're going to do with that to make you happy? And if I put on a brand new dress and I feel really nice and good and confident and I'm going to go out and enjoy myself, it wasn't the dress that made me happy, it was the confidence that made me happy, and I went out and enjoyed it and made the memories. So the myth around by having lots of things that can make you happy, no, it's, you have to start from within yourself.
Fantastic. You've shared such great insights. You've covered a lot of my questions in sharing what you've shared with answering other questions. So you're incredible. It's as if like I ask a question, then you answer the next two or three questions as well. So you've been an incredible guest. So I really appreciate your time. There's just one last question, and it's, is there something about happiness that remains unanswered for you?
Yes. When, and if I may, I'm sort of going to put an analogy into my business. When I think about people wanting to invest in property and they're fearful, fear is an intangible emotion. You can't touch it. You, you think you can feel it because your stomach might go or you might have a headache. So there may be an attributing reaction in your body, but the word fear you cannot touch. When I speak to people, they'll say, what if? What if? What if that happens? What if that happens? And when they're asking me the what if, I'm asking them to equate that what if. What if I don't get a tenant? Well, that's a statement. Well, what's your fear about not getting a tenant? Well, what if I don't get a tenant? Well, let's equate that back to a dollar figure. If I don't get a tenant and you're expecting $500 a week or more in rent, that means how long? So let's just say you didn't have a tenant for a month and it's $500 a week. That's $2,000. So the what if I don't get a tenant is an intangible statement, but the $2,000 becomes quite tangible. And all of a sudden you go, oh, if I've got $2,000 in the bank, I don't have to worry about that what if. So happiness to me is an intangible feeling. You don't know what it is because you can't touch it, you can't box it, you can't wrap it up, you can't feel it. But when you are happy, you have endorphins and your body changes, your body facade changes, your emotions change, your outlook changes. So there is a contributing actual feeling through your body, but you still can't touch it. So I sort of say happiness is intangible, and to get that feeling that you want, you have to go within yourself and ask yourself, is standing out on the grass on a sunny day going to make me happy? Well, it's going to make me feel really nice inside and everything's fine and I'm calm. Well, that's happiness. If going out and buying a new dress is going to make you happy, as long as it's not a short-term get fix. But if that dress is going to be there and you could see that you're going to wear it to the next 3, 4, 5 occasions and you're going to be looking towards those happy occasions, well, that's the feeling that the dress is going to get. It's the outcome of buying the dress. So the myth, or what I feel is missing in happiness, it's because we're looking for something, because we're such a materialistic society now, Western world is such a materialistic society, because we are materialistic and we can touch and feel whatever those material things are, we're thinking we'll get that in happiness, but we can't because you can't touch or feel it. So I suppose that's what I think is missing. And I think when people come to the realisation it has to be diverted from an intangible to a tangible, and whatever that tangible is, I feel people then will be able to balance the unhappiness and happiness in their life. That's my. So in my business, I talk about what ifs being intangible and turning it into tangible, and I suppose that's how I've answered the question.
That's fantastic. It's a really insightful response and thought out response in relation to the question. So I really appreciate your insights. They've been terrific. There's been so many lessons on happiness, around misconceptions and around the subjective nature of it, and you've tied it to feelings and intangibilities, and but you've helped the listeners certainly better understand the complex nature of it. But however, it is simple if we really look inside ourselves and stop listening to the outside world and allowing them to define who we are. We start to define who we are from within. And I think that's where you're getting with that last response, is when we listen from within more and start acting accordingly and start being who we are, we feel more aligned and connected with the world. It's when we're trying to be someone else, and you mentioned the comparison with social media. It's all about these masks that we're putting on, and we put that mask on and thinking, no, I'm still not fulfilled. How come I've achieved what they achieved, or I'm doing what they're doing, but it doesn't make me happy. It's like, yeah. So yes, thank you so much, Christine, for these terrific insights. Now, how can the listeners best connect with you if they're looking for that financial freedom and they need someone to direct them?
Well, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that opportunity. I make it very clear I'm a property strategist and a buyer's advocate. I am not an accountant, even though I have done that. I have not kept that qualification up. I'm not an accountant, financial planner, a mortgage broker or legal representative. I am a property strategist. But the opportunity is I'm very happy, as you can see, I like talking. I'm very happy to offer your listeners a 30-minute complimentary Zoom or phone call. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and it depends on where that conversation they want to take that conversation. It will be around property as a vehicle, of course, but in general, been there, done that, so I generally can answer any question from a life experience or from a property strategist perspective. Anyone can contact me on 1300 number, 1300 736 754. Or my email address, I beg your pardon, or the website is smarter, SMARTER, propertyinvesting.com.au, and you can go in there and book online, go into the calendar and book a time for a complimentary chat.
Fantastic, Christine. And to the listeners, I'll include those links in the show notes. So you can open the show notes, click directly and go directly to Christine's website, or give her a call directly from the show notes. And thank you once again, Christine. I really appreciate your time and sharing your wonderful wisdom and insights on joy, happiness, and fulfillment. And to the listeners, continue to find joy, happiness, and fulfillment from within. That was my takeaway from the discussion today with Christine. So thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Anthony. I truly appreciate it.
You're welcome. We're offline. So, yeah.